The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others. Hi everyone, if you're new here, my name is Archie and this video is an update. But more than that, it is a reflection on why Archie Uplifts began, what it has grown into, and where it's headed next. For the past 2 years, from April 2023 to April 2025, I have been volunteering at SRT, an RMC school managed by TGES. I have had the privilege to mentor over 80 students and contribute more than 210 hours of on-ground teaching. What stood out to me early on in my journey while teaching under-resourced kids was this. The kids managed to memorize textbook concepts very well and reproduce them. But when I thought about their careers, their jobs, their future, I felt something was missing. And that was the development of essential 21st century skills that are required in the modern world. This realization became the foundation of Archie Uplifts. Over my IBDP years 1 and 2, I followed a structured approach to teach 5 core skills to the students, using age-appropriate and engaging activities. We began with communication, which was not just about speaking, but listening, understanding, and expressing. I began with Chinese Whisper, which is also called the telephone game, where students passed on messages in both English and Gujarati and learned how important it is to listen, to pause, and to pass on the right message. This activity was followed by emotional charades, where we formed chits which contained various emotions, and certain kids were called up to pick up a chit and act out the emotion in front of the class. The rest of the members had to guess what emotion it was, and this is how the students learned about non-verbal communication. I also presented certain daily communication scenarios to them about how to communicate at home with friends and then in school with teachers. The next activity was picture composition. Each of the pictures was selected carefully, each representing a global issue. This was done to ensure that the kids don't just describe the picture, but learn to move beyond, understand global issues, and develop into well-rounded citizens. The next activity was show and tell, something all of us love and remember from our childhood days. The kids were asked to bring their favorite soft toys, books, and toys from their homes and talk about them in class. Afterwards, I designed reading comprehension activities, where each of the comprehension passage was related to a certain emotion, morale, learning, or ethic. And the questions that were being answered by the students were all based on Bloom's taxonomy. The next skill was teamwork, learning to work together despite the differences. The first activity was called Birthday Lineup, where the kids were instructed to arrange themselves from the youngest to the oldest in class without using verbal communication. Afterwards, I conducted an activity called the Common Thread. The kids were divided into teams and they had to discuss their common likes and dislikes. This is how they understood that the things that they love might not be equally loved by somebody else. But there also might be a scenario where both of them love something equally. My favorite activity in this skill was the collective storytelling activity. There were 4 members in a group. The first member had to begin telling a story using 4 words. The next member had to continue the story, but only using 4 words. And that is how the story was formed. This is how the kids learned to depend on each other, to borrow ideas, and to express themselves. Following this, I also conducted a debate competition, where kids were given basic ideas and basic topics, like whether they should wear uniform at school or no, whether they should wake up early or stay awake at night. The next activity was Trust Walk, where one member in the group was blindfolded and the other members had to give directions and had to guide the blindfolded member to the treasure. Scavenger hunt was a similar activity, but this time the students were given a list of items, something like find an object that is green in color, or find an object that is round, or find something that you wear every day. And the team that gathered all of these objects first was the winning one. The third skill was public speaking, something that is very close to my heart. I began with discussing poems and explaining to the students what various literary devices mean and how exactly they should present a poem. The students themselves recited in front of class, and there was a special group of students, around 10 students, that I worked very closely with, and I brought them to school, to our TGES courtyard, and they presented in our morning assembly. Apart from discussing poems, we also discussed various dramas like Little Red Hen, Three Little Pigs, Cinderella. We began by discussing the dialogues, characterization, and eventually we divided the roles and allowed the students to act out. I also taught the students how exactly they should be narrating a story. And I selected a pair of students from the class who could do storytelling well. And that is how I concluded with the public speaking skill. The fourth skill was about imagination and creativity, where students could use their boundless potential. The first activity that I conducted with grade 3 was called handprint art. Here, the students had to trace their palm on a page and create art out of it. And it was an absolute amazement to see that kids had turned their handprints into something like butterflies, birds. This was then followed by an activity titled Journey into Imagination, where I gave them creative prompts like, imagine you had a superpower for a day. What would that superpower be and what would you do with it? The next prompt went like, if animals could talk to you for a day, what animal would you want to talk to? And what exactly would you be discussing with them? Afterwards, we did something fabulous, time travel. Not really. We did an activity called Time Travel Adventure, where I allowed the kids to imagine what the world looked like 200 years in the past, and simultaneously imagine what the world would look like 200 years into the future. And the students created posters on this and pasted them on their wall. The final activity for imagination and creativity was creating my own country. Here, the kids were instructed to create and design their own set of laws that would govern their country, and also come up with a design for their flag and decide what their national anthem would be, what their national animal would be. The fifth and the last skill that I covered was best out of waste and entrepreneurship, and both of these are hands-on thinking skills. In the best out of waste activity, which was called Trash to Treasure, the kids were first introduced to what waste actually means. This is how they grew conscious of our environment and became mindful of reusing their waste items. I told them to gather waste from their homes and come up with an idea where they could create something creative out of those waste items. The activity for entrepreneurship was Startup Stars. Here, the kids had to create an object of their own out of DIY, or do it yourself as we like to call it. And they had to sell it to their own classmates, not for real money, of course. Here, I emphasized the importance of setting a difference between cost price and selling price, understanding what profit means, and also learning to give discounts, offers, and as a customer, learning how to bargain. Now, as I prepare to leave for college, I know that this initiative cannot end with me. This is just the beginning. The next step is building a volunteer team, reaching out to multiple RMC schools, creating multilingual, skill-based modules, and turning this from an individual initiative to a collective movement. We believe that education should surpass all kinds of barriers of language, background, and opportunity. I myself will continue doing the work because I unwaveringly believe that education can empower, uplift, and transform lives. Thank you for listening. This is Archie Uplifts, and it's only the beginning.